Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast with a K. I am your co-host, Steven. This here is your usual host, Christian. And this here is our first guest. This is
Hello.
It's
Duncan. Say
exciting.
hello to
Hi.
Duncan.
It's
You'll
good to
notice,
be here.
thank you for joining us. We're very
Yes, of
excited to
course.
have our first
Of
guest.
course. Yes, I'm honored to be the first guest.
It is an honor, truly. So you'll notice one other thing that is different. You might be able to tell if you look really closely. You'll see that we're on a different couch. We're actually in a different location
We're together.
from our usual. Right, we're actually together. We are breaking COVID rules. We are actually together. We have not gotten vaccinations, and we are actively putting ourselves in danger. So
Wow.
that's the change this week.
Did I sign up for that?
I mean, it was in the contract.
Oh, oof! I must have missed that part. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. So we're gonna get ready for our first topic, and before I do that, let me just shave a little bit, clean myself up. There we go. There we go. Okay, just put that down there. So Christian, are you prepared? Are you seated?
I'm seated.
Feeling good? Awesome. Okay, let me address the elephant in the room. We're in VR chat. Woo! This is our first time doing this. We just got it set up, and we're gonna try it out. It works pretty amazingly well, actually. It has quite a bit of support for it, but it's a bit of technical gobbledygook to get it going. So bear with us. We don't have our overlays this episode, but we'll try to get that going in the future. So Christian, I'm very curious about our first topic here,
Yes.
our real talk segment. We would have it at the bottom of the screen if we could. What topic are we talking about today?
Well, you see, we've talked about education before, and we have a guest, and we both of us have done kind of an educational history / interview kind of a thing. So we thought it would be natural to do it with our guest, and then we'd tackle a question together like we did those times. So yeah, why don't we do that?
All right.
Sounds
That
great.
sounds good to me. Where do I begin?
Where do you begin?
Well,
What did you grow up with? What was your school experience?
my school experience. So, I grew up in a a good, family household all together. No big anythings. But I went to, let's see, I did not go to preschool. It's not in preschool. My parents were, they don't like preschool. But they put me in kindergarten, where this was a relatively small school. I think there were like 60 people, maybe 70 people in the whole school. And this was a kindergarten through 8th grade school. Yeah, so it was quite the big school. And it was at a church as well. It was hosted at a church. So it was kind of like homeschool, but not really. How lax it is. Yeah,
Was
and
this the co-op?
this was
Or
not
was
a co-op,
this-
but
okay.
it was like full-time co-op, if that makes sense. So instead of like
Gotcha.
being on a one-day basis or 1 day a week basis, it was like, obviously the regular 5.
Makes sense.
So I mean, that's where it started, and I continued there all the way through middle school, and then eventually went to high school, and then I finally went to a private school. It was relatively big. I think we had, 300, and that also in middle school, which I did not go to. But I did have friends that went there, who were pretty cool, that I got to read, that I went with after 8th grade, and also I met some that happened to be there after leaving our school, like after elementary, they went there for middle school. And that was an okay experience. There have been some stuff afterwards that have made me reflect on how good of a school it was, but other than that, yeah, it was pretty basic, I would say. Although I wish I did not have a computer science program. So when I first went to UBC, that was the first time I've ever touched code. Actually, it was my first semester, and I remember
Well,
I don't remember what class it was, but it was a class that we had to make a project in Java, and I had no idea. I was completely lost. I just handed it to my friend, was like, "Here you go, you do it," and she did everything. She's amazing, Sarah. If you ever watch this, you're amazing. But So she did
Wait,
everything.
are you admitting to academic dishonesty?
It was in the
No, it
past,
can't
though. It
be.
doesn't count. Yeah.
It can't be.
It would be in the
Sorry,
past, of
please
course.
continue. I didn't mean to
Yes.
interrupt you.
So we did that, and then I went to Python in 201, and that was okay. That was I finally caught it, and then from there it was just kind of the standard usual college experience. But yeah, I wish I got a little bit more. When I noticed into high school, when I went from high school to college, I feel like I was missing out on some stuff. I wish I had taken. There wasn't a wide selection of like AP classes, and I had no idea I could go to college during like high school. I had,
Right.
I
I
had
didn't even know
no.
that was a thing.
I didn't even know it was a thing. The first time I knew about it was when I met this guy. That was the
What?
first time. Yeah, I had no idea. They had never told us. They just told us to take AP classes, and our AP classes were like regular classes anyway. So.
Oh wait, you didn't know that you could go to college. Period. Like
Oh no!
During high school.
I didn't know that you could supplement. Yeah, your high school
during high
learning with.
school.
Yes,
Got you. Okay.
I had no idea. No. That was the plan, obviously, to
Dual
go to
enrollment.
college. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I did not know about that, but I obviously knew about college after high school. That was the whole plan. So
Right. Okay. That's.
I did
that's
get
what
into
I
my
was
college. I did get into the college of my choice as well. So I was happy about that. But
Nice.
yeah, so that's a general kind of basis. But
That's a
yeah,
helpful overview.
I would say like elementary, middle school was more fun, not so much educational. And then high school was a lot of drama until the very end. There was like I was always trying to like fit in, but then I finally found a group. And then college, I think I actually learned the most, and it seems to be my experience. So, yeah,
Interesting.
Well, thank you for the overview.
Yeah.
Did you have some questions that you were ready with? I have some of my own, but
No, I don't have any prepared questions. It's just gonna be natural flow of conversation.
sounds good. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Well, I was curious about the social aspect. So you're saying elementary and middle school was more fun, right?
yep.
So going into high school, you were saying that you actually had some friends that crossed over into high school.
Yes, I did.
So how did those friendships develop throughout your educational experience?
Okay. Let me think about the friends. So I think there's only one I can remember off the top of my head, and this girl and I had gotten along or whatever in middle school or in elementary school, I should say, but we were always kind of like in our separate cliques. When I come to high school, I noticed that she's in my class. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I tried to talk to her initially. She wasn't like mean, but she was kind of like, dismissive, like, because obviously it didn't make sense because we were kind of like in different groups. We had our high school like split into like almost like 3 factions or like 2 factions.
Oh, what were
Which is
those
weird.
factions? What were the lines, the boundary lines?
Sure. So the boundary lines were, if you were a jock, that was one. Another one was like the drama group, and then the outsiders pretty much was the kind of like the last group. I was in the outsider group, but eventually I was able to make my own kind of like coalition towards the end of like people from outsiders and a jock, and then I had a person that wasn't really in the drama group, but she was kind of in there by proxy because her friends were in there. But another girl the one I had met again in high school, so we were kind of close, sort of, not like close enough that we knew each other. But when we got there freshman year, she kind of dismissed of me, and then it's been like that for 3 years, and up until senior year, where she finally started to like be nice to me, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I wasn't like, where have you been or anything like that, but it was kind of like, yeah, this is nice. Like, I'm glad to be. It was also weird because we had spent, like I said, 3 years of just like not talking to each other
Yeah.
and just being in our own worlds. It's not like we were mean or anything. We were just kind of in our own worlds. And then eventually she just starts talking to me, and I was like, oh, this is a cool change.
It's a strange experience.
Yeah, it was weird. And a similar kind of thing happened when I had friends that, like, I went to this high school just for my friends, actually, for one of my friends, who was going there. And he's like one of my best friends. But he like moved into the jock group and I was gone. Like we were still like good buds and stuff like that, hung out every now and then, but like we were pretty much gone at that point. Like
Wow.
he was just like in there, and whenever it was school time, he was in that group. So yeah, but it
So
was
you have
always
these
nice to me. So
passions.
yeah,
So
it was
clicks, right?
weird. Yeah, and I
Or click.
imagine that every high school has them or any kind of like school. But
Yeah. So,
yeah.
well, what's interesting is that me and Christian, we were homeschooled.
Oh, okay.
So we have, we have different experiences, and I've certainly dealt with cliques. Like there are situations where that's been a thing, but like I hear a lot about in public school and high school, or I guess even private school, you know, that's a very common, very, very common thing to it's like it's not just that it's there, it's that it's an overarching thing that like seriously affects the social relationships in high school, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Um, what I'd say seriously affects, yeah, it could, depending on who you were. If you kind of, I think for the first few years, I kind of was like that, kind of trying to feed off like social interactions,
Yeah.
and like, trying to find friends, whatever. But towards junior year, end of junior year, senior year, I kind of found my own friends and was
Mm-hmm.
able to just kind of let go of that. So once I was,
Yeah.
and it didn't bother me having cliques or whatever. Once you have like a good stitch of friends, you can just kind of breeze right through it. But I would
Right.
say the first few years was trying to find some group to be in it. I was in with the jocks for a little bit. Didn't really like them too much. They were I was kind of out. I was always kind of an outsider. And then I was in with a drama group for a little bit. That was fun as an outsider. It was good to look at the drama. I enjoyed that part. Um, Never be a part of it, but never really fit in it either. So then I just kind of like eventually I don't know, I'm not saying like I developed this group all on my own. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, oh, I like you from, the jock group, and I like you from the drama group, and I like you from, outsider group. Let's just be friends. And it was like the four of us just
Right.
always talking. We bonded over video games, so that was really cool.
There you go.
Nice.
Well,
Good way
yeah.
to do
So
it. So,
so video games do get you friends. There you go.
video
You're
games
welcome.
are that's undoubtable. Actually, that's
Yeah.
not the topic of today,
Um
I guess, but yeah,
yeah.
that is one thing.
And it was a different
Definitely.
experience from going from high school to elementary and middle school because I don't mean to
Mhm.
brag, but I was kind of the center of tension at this elementary and middle school. So
Mm.
jumping from there and going from middle to high school is very jarring to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, be a part of that and like, yeah, be on the receiving end where I wasn't very, yeah, I was kind of like an outsider for the most part. So,
Right. That's interesting.
And what
mhm.
But
would
isn't it true
oh,
that? Oh, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, how did that translate to going to college?
Uh,
Oh, interesting. Hmm. I think it was. I think it made me more, definitely better sociable. Because when I was in freshman year, uh, I was very out there, and I was like already assumed that everyone liked me, and kind of I like had these assumptions already built in. But then going through a few years of high school and understanding like, okay, well, you've got to go out and make friends and stuff like that. They don't just come to you because a lot of the time, since our school was so small, you were friends with everyone in class. Like you were
mm,
almost like brother and sister.
in middle school,
Like
right?
yeah, in middle school and yeah, in elementary. I
Mhm.
had the same group pretty much the entire time. So I had known these guys for years, almost like a decade.
Wow.
Um, and it was like they were like family. So we all like knew each other and stuff like that. But then going to high school, you think that you kind of have a grasp on, how to make friends and stuff like that, but it's actually a little bit different. You actually have to kind of build like social, you know, if you have to flex your social skills, if it makes
Mhm.
sense. Yeah.
Totally.
So, and then going into college, that was kind of the same thing. It was like, it, my general strategy was like find something in common with someone and then maybe talk to them about it and then maybe they'll find other stuff in common. And that didn't really happen in middle school because we were just always thrown into the same equations most of the time. We were just mostly doing the same thing, so we had to be friends kind of regardless. There was some
Right.
drama, of course, but it was mostly, not too much. Whereas in high school, it was a little bit bigger, so you could have these cliques and kind of drama related stuff. So
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So So in high school,
Hmm.
I'm curious about this. So what'd you go into in college?
You mean like its degree or
Yeah. What degree did you go into?
computer science?
Okay, yeah. Oh, right. I knew that. Um, so I'm curious about when you started getting interested in that subject before college. Like in high school? Was
Mhm.
it in middle school? When did you
That,
start thinking that that could be your thing?
that's a good question. Oh, geez. I would say that like I've always kind of been interested in gaming, so my first goal was to go and do that. Um, but then
Make
I,
games?
yeah, and like make games. Yeah, of course. Kind of like I feel I don't want to say that, but I have a lot of friends that have that kind of aspiration as well,
I
and
know
like
exactly what you I did
yeah,
too.
may or may not do that. Um,
I still do.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
I,
Okay.
that's better than me. Um, so when I was going through, I was like, oh, I should make games, stuff like that. But then when I got to high school, it wasn't really about the passion. Like I lost it, I think, for
Mm.
video gaming. But then it became like my uncle had told me he worked for a really good company, and he told me like, oh, computer science is really good because they get like a bunch of money. And then it became about money. And it was like
Mm.
there's a good to that, but then there's also like I lost a little bit of that passion, I think, at the same time. So it didn't
Mhm.
really match together well. Um, yeah, so I think once I got to college and I started programming, and I was fascinated by some bits of it, but other bits I was like, it's kind of annoying. And if this is all this is going to be annoying. Now it's completely changed when I've been out in the
Mm.
post college world. It's been a little bit different, but um, in college, and I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in college either. I was kind of finding it. And I didn't find it until towards the end what exactly I wanted. By that time, it was kind of like, well, kind of missed out on that. So
Gotcha.
I mean, school did not really prepare us for college as well as I'd hoped.
Hmm.
Mm.
Like the basic technologies course that we had was learning about Microsoft Office. That was it.
Oh.
So
I was
yeah,
gonna.
that was all.
One of the questions I want to ask is like, in high school, what was your experience with like supervisors, or was there anybody to mentor you or tell you about like colleges or careers?
So there was one person technically, and she was our guidance counselor.
Mhm.
Um, and she was not very good. She tried, I think,
Uh-huh.
but she was not very good. Um, yeah, it was like one time she like you could sign it these like little forms on her wall or whatever, and she would, like time slots, and you can come and like visit her, and it was just kind of like you should go see her. It was I think it was like heavily recommended that you do it. You didn't
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
to, but it was like heavily. And she would just sit there and she would give you a piece of paper, and it was like, okay, I want you to do, and it would the basic like interview questions like, what are your best strengths? What are your weaknesses? Those kind of things. And she'd be like, yeah, she'd be like, write something down or whatever. We'll discuss what you think. And I was like, okay. So I did that, and we talked for a little bit, and that was it. That was my entire experience. And she would send us like
Huh.
college stuff every once in a while, like, oh, here's this
Uh-huh.
college, come to check us out or whatever. But it was never like super in depth. Like, what do you want to do? What is your passion? She never.
Mm.
And for a small school, you would expect that, but
Yeah.
didn't happen. So
And so that was high. Are we talking about high school here?
yeah,
Or
high
Yeah.
school, yes,
yeah.
yeah. I had none
Huh.
of that in middle school or in elementary school either. But yeah,
So who
so
was it that actually got you to, or was it your own ambition to like search for colleges and find out how to even apply, like that kind of like that process?
sure, yeah, sure. So I would say it's my parents and obviously my uncle. My uncle had told me that this was the same one that had told me that computer science can make me a lot of money. Had said, well, a lot of computer scientists that I hire go to UMBC, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna go do that. That sounds like a great opportunity. That's my dream school.
Mm.
Um, so then I started when they started coming. I think they came to our high school, and I think I looked at them for a little bit, and I have a few others as well, but it was mostly my parents and my uncle telling me like what to kind of do there and what I should strive for. So
Mhm.
yeah, but
So
yeah,
so what was your view of college in high school? How did you think of it? What was your goal in going to college?
my goal. Okay, I'll try and address the first question. So my
Okay.
first view in college of it was scary, I think. Like I was
Mm,
not I didn't feel like I was ready. And
mm,
I could feel it once I was in there. Sometimes it felt like I was like, back in high school, but then other times it was like, oh man, I feel like I'm so out of my depth here. Um,
mhm.
especially in around sophomore year with data structures. That was a good time. But
Yeah.
um and then oh shoot, I forget your first question. What was your second
Sure,
question?
sure.
What was
So
your
I was
second question?
saying, what your view of college was, and like, what was the purpose of going? Like in high school, what was the purpose in your mind of college?
Oh yeah, it was just to make money. That was
To
it.
make money. I
Yeah, it
agree.
was like that was it. And then
Yeah.
also there was the goal of, maybe work on a game or two. Maybe that'd be cool. Um, but
Right.
yeah, I kind of fell out of that after 2 years of college. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had the middle time of like, I don't know exactly what I want. Then I didn't find it until towards the end, which was kind of
Gotcha.
already too late. But yeah. So my
So like,
views on
go
oh
ahead.
my
Finish.
view like it was on high or on college was just like this is like the place that people go to that you try and get like higher education. They're going to expect a lot from you, and in some regards they did. So but then in others, it's like, why are you teaching? I could have taught this better maybe, or could have
Yep.
come up with a better course. We were just talking about that earlier a little bit, but yeah, so um it was kind of a mixed bag, but it was definitely, I would say, a little bit more scary than anything else initially. So
Got you. Interesting. So you were talking about how your uncle was telling you computer scientists made a lot of money. You should go into computer science, right? And so you were saying that's kind of what pushed you through high school to go towards computer science.
yes, yeah.
Where do you think you would be if your uncle had not told you that and you
Oh
hadn't
man,
gotten that extra boost?
that is a good question. I don't honestly. I think I might have been a culinary chef. I think I
Really?
was in my yeah. I think I enjoyed that for a time. I think if I remember correctly, it may have been gaming as well. Like more so, like I would have actually had a better passion for it, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, because I could use that as the sole determiner or the sole driver rather than just like money. So I think it would have been either a culinary artist or as a game developer, but I'm not sure. That's initially what I could think of because I remember I used to really like cooking shows and stuff like that. So I'm no good at cooking now, but we're working on that a little bit. So
Maybe in another timeline,
yeah,
in
maybe
that direction.
another timeline I would have been Bobby Flay, potentially the next one, or the next Gordon Ramsay. That would have been cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Could have Gordon Ramsay on a freaking
I
podcast.
know.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'd rather have you than Gordon Ramsay. He just, oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I just got so excited.
He just couldn't help himself. Yeah, of
I was just
course.
like, oh,
Gordon Ramsay, I love him so much.
well, he
You got
would
a
have just yelled at
standing
us a lot.
ovation.
That's what. Yeah, I was just thinking he'd just yell at us all the time. Anyway,
Yeah.
so you go through computer science unfortunately, just based on I don't know if it's unfortunate, but it wasn't based on a passion necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was definitely not quite there. I
Well,
never
how did
really
that
had.
evolve as you went through college? Did it change?
Sure.
I'm gonna fix my. Sorry, I just need to fix my presentation.
So
Okay.
how did it, that's a good question. So I think for gaming, it changed a little bit because of the particular scheduling that happens sometimes with the UMBC. Um, I, when I was looking around for potentially like going into it, I know they have their like games tester or whatever or developer class during the spring, and I
Mhm.
couldn't take it that spring because I was already taking like so much on top of it. So I was like, okay, well I'll circle back to it, and I was like, and it just never seemed to align quite right. Um, and then just decided like I don't think I want to. I felt like
Mhm.
I maybe was not either not equipped or just not because I had maybe delayed it for so long because I thought, I can come back to it third year or second year. I can come back to it. Um, and it kind of caught up on me. It's like, oh shoot, well I can't really do that at this point anymore. Um,
Mhm.
But then I started. Well, I'm also a huge fan of American football. I love football. It's great.
Oh.
It's that's something that grew over college too. Was my love for that.
Interesting.
And I had found a random YouTube channel one day talking about like different players, and he was like talking about how they stack up versus like what the common narratives are when you talk about sports players, because you usually look at like maybe just touchdowns or interceptions or stuff like that. But this guy was bringing out like weird numbers, and I was like, what are these numbers about? These are so strange. Where do these like averages come from, and how do you know how good they are? And he was telling me all about like analytics stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I found an actual company that does stuff relating to that, like a bigger one, so it's like a relatively small one. But this bigger one had just started going, and I found them, and they've been growing ever since. But after I found that, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. That's it right there. That's the kind of thing I want to do. And then I met this guy, and I saw that he was doing it too, and I was like, dude, that looks pretty cool. I actually want to, yeah, I actually want to do that too. His is a little bit different, obviously, but he does like we do bounce things off each other sometimes, and I look at that, and I'm like, oh, that's super cool. So, yeah, that
So
was
we're talking data science?
yes, we are talking data science. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it kind of meshed, because I didn't really have anybody that was super close in college. I don't no, because they had moved on already because they were a bit older than I was. But
Mm-hmm.
so I was kind of like, when I met him, I didn't really have anybody at that point. Not that I couldn't get anybody else, but then I met him, and I was like, wow, we think alike on a lot of things, and we have kind of the same interests. So it was like, yeah, it seems like a nice fit, and be cool to at least have something to bounce off of. I think if I had somebody to bounce off like game stuff too, I think I would have been more interested. I would have been more set in that too.
Right.
So I think I missed out on that too, because I had friends that were gonna do game as well, and they just shifted away as well. So I was like, I guess I'll shift away as well, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, the friends you have really do influence.
yeah, they
how
do,
you think about
absolutely.
things.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
I would almost definitely not be doing any game development if it wasn't for Christian and Alec, another friend of ours. Maybe we'll get them on the podcast someday.
Maybe.
Yeah, that would be cool. Maybe we'll need a bigger couch.
We can fit a couple more people on here.
You say that. They would have to be kneeling the entire time.
We can just have him sit on the futon.
We would need
yes.
to build him a body and transfer his consciousness into that body, just like we did for these.
Oh,
Yes, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
That is
We should
true.
do that for Luna, too. Anyways,
I
wanted to ask...
AI.
Yes. I wanted to ask about... So we're talking about your education, we're talking about your interests and your passions, and, like... do you see what you do as a career? Do you see it as a job? Because it seems like your view of college was to like make money, which sounds more like, oh, it's a job, it gets me money, rather than a career, I'm putting work into it because I enjoy it. So like, where do you stand on career versus job and what you're doing and what you're interested in?
That's an awesome question, because that's a question I've had to wrestle with the past like year or so. Was like, what do I really want to do? What I can continue doing like software development and web design, or I could do something that's a little bit more what I think would be fun. So initially it was like, I'll just grow into it. When I first got into computer science, it's like, I'll just grow into it. It'll be good. I'll understand it. It'll be good. I'm going to get lots of money, and I won't even care. But then as I started doing it, obviously you have different opinions when you start going through the classes, going through the motions, and you're like, do I want to be stuck with this kind of job? I'm not sure. And then like post-college, just kind of reflecting more. You have more time to reflect, and you're not in school anymore, so you're kind of like, okay, well, kind of free to kind of make my own choices. And ideally, I would like to have a career that is also a job. So like somebody I really like, that I work for every day, and I'm just excited to do it. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to tackle the day, and got new excitement things. And then might be hard times, stuff like that, but to be happy is the biggest thing. It's just being, and even if it doesn't like pay well, that's not really a big deal to me anymore. It's just more about, the mental health, the happiness kind of thing. So,
I feel
I mean,
that,
obviously paying is nice, but you don't want to be stuck,
yeah.
in the sewers or whatever
Yeah.
all day. So if you can kind of, balance those two as best you can. But I usually try and prioritize like happiness, especially because I've been prioritizing money kind of for so long, or like the thought of it. Yeah.
Right. So now
And I think that,
you're coming back to
yeah, I think,
your
I
needs.
think, I think that's it wasn't like, I've seen that it's not super effective, at least with me. So maybe I'm kind of like counterbalancing for it at this point. But ideally, I don't want to be, stuck doing something that it doesn't pay well, obviously. And I'm happy about. I want the best of both, but obviously now I've come to terms with like, after having doing something that's not so fun, I would rather have something more fun and something I can actually work towards. So, and that's something that was never drilled into me in high school or middle school or anything like that. It was just kind of like, just go for the money.
Sure. So where did you develop that then?
Honestly, it was probably during the latter part of college, and definitely post college. I think that there have been a number of influencers that I've watched, and I've noticed that they're happy, even despite the troubles that they have. And they've said that they like, you kind of chase your happiness or whatever. Because I always thought that was kind of like a dumb slogan, but now it kind of makes more sense to me, and it's something that I try and strive for now. But yeah, I would say.
Well,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I do have a question, but
Yeah.
okay. So we're talking about, okay. So in high school, you developed this worldview because of what everyone was saying. Of course, that money is the most important thing. When did that shift happen? Where you shifted back to mental health? You need, like, was it during the course of your job that wasn't very fun?
Yeah, I would say probably it was. There was always like a seedling there. I think even like through the early bits of college. I don't think it was ever there in high school, but definitely there in college, and it just continued to grow, 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 grow. But never like came through on the surface quite yet until I came to a job that I was like, this is not quite the job I think that like I don't think I'm deserving, or like this job doesn't deserve me, I guess is the better way to do it. It feels kind of self-demeaning in some ways. So I want to find something that's not only self-fulfilling, but also makes me happy. So, and that kind of meshes with me as well. But yeah, that was definitely like having some like real world experience. I finally could say like, yeah, this is what I want to shoot for now, I think.
Yeah, this is a change I want to make.
Yeah, if I can get like the best of both, but obviously prioritize happiness over just the sake of money. Yeah.
So it's a huge head start to like know that when you're younger and to aim
absolutely. Yes.
grow.
Yes.
That's something, that's a takeaway right there, is if you
That is
that
100%.
early that you need to take care of yourself and you need to be happy with the work you're doing, pursue that. Maybe you don't get there immediately, right? Maybe you do jobs in the meantime that aren't your passion, but it's something on your mind early that helps you get a good start.
That's 100% it. I wish that I had a sit down with my family, like, okay, what do I really want to do? And like just have a real deep self-reflection of like, what is my life's purpose? What do I want to do in this time that I have allotted to me, kind of thing. And I never really had to sit down. I just was like, I'm just gonna get to it when I get to it. I'll just worry about right now, and then also the prospect of just getting a good job or whatever. So yeah, and also it was finally coming to don't be afraid to be yourself. That's another thing. It's huge. That's huge. Because I've told him this recently, but I feel like I've lived in shadows a lot. Yeah, like my parents' shadow and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Which is not necessarily bad as they're growing up, because obviously they know more about the world than you do, but they may have certain expectations or certain things that they would like you to do, whereas you're like, maybe I don't quite fit that mold or whatever. So, and there's obviously there's obviously ways to be respectful about it too, of course. Like you don't have to like go through the whole rebellious goth phase and I'm out of here or whatever. But yeah.
But it sounds like you never, if you didn't go through, that's an sort of extreme but common examples where the goth phase, the super rebellious phase. But it sounds like you didn't have that kind of phase, right?
Yeah, that's 100% right.
So like that transition from, there's the children who look up to the parents because their parents know better. Generally, they do.
Yeah, generally.
To becoming mentally and like emotionally independent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've never had, and I always because my parents have noted that you've never been really rebellious or anything like that, and I was like, well, why do I need to be? I've kind of already got everything I need at the moment. I mean, I've got a house and I've got food, I got water. What else could I need? I got games. I'm good. So everything was already kind of pre-made for me, but then I don't know if it's the part of being a late bloomer, as they say, or whatever, but I just had this inkling about me that was like, well, maybe it's time to maybe explore the world through my own lens instead of maybe their own or something like that. And they've been, to their credit, they've been super accommodating with that up to this point. They've been super, I couldn't ask for better support from them. And it's not like that they were forcing me either to be like this, oppressive kind of oh, you need to do exactly what we say or anything like that. It was kind of like, you want to try this? And I was just like, let's do it. Just kind of lack of self-drive, I think. So it's not to their fault at all. I don't blame them one bit for it. But yeah.
Well,
I
finish, please.
I was just gonna say I reflected on this recently. I was just like, I've never had that moment until kind of recently, and I was like, yeah, this is interesting, because it was said over and over I would never have this experience, but now I have. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so in high school you didn't have that rebellious phase, okay, for whatever number of reasons, which is fine, but still you needed a chance to figure out what you needed for yourself. Looking forward into the future, like high school is meant to prepare you for serious specialization so you can get a field that you love. What would have been useful in high school for you in order to develop your own view of what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, I mean, first thing would have been, learn something beyond Microsoft Office. Would have been helpful. That would have been great. That was to the extent of it. I mean, that's used for some jobs. It can be helpful, but I could have learned that on my own.
Not exactly a creative pursuit.
No, definitely not. That's a tough question.
It's very open-ended, so it's a discussion topic.
Yeah, one of the things that I have learned, at least through college, that's good about it is it does. I don't know exactly what the vehicle is that they do this, how this is the ways they do it, but they do teach you to look up problems or solutions to things. Whether it be good for bad, obviously, I feel like I have a better I can search things better if I need to be, whether it's just, honestly on Google, or if there's I need to kind of understand this problem a little bit better. Maybe I'm missing out on something. Because you're a little bit more independent. I'm not sure exactly what the vehicle is, but I definitely think I missed out on that in high school. Maybe if we had maybe more open-ended kind of projects, because a lot of the projects were a bit, structured. Maybe that's part of it. I've wrestled with that thought too. Just so kind of
you're saying make a creative project of some sort, and you get to choose the media that you use.
Yeah, and we never really had that. I mean, we had our own Microsoft PowerPoint presentations, which of our favorite person, and it's okay. That was the closest thing I can remember. But yeah, it was not quite there in terms of I think education wise, but yeah. So, but that's a really good question.
I feel like this is a good segue into our kind of other question that we want to focus on, which
Yeah.
is how can you learn if you aren't curious? And this plays into this idea of having a passion towards what you're learning, and like that, like when you have a passion and a drive and you're curious, it's really easy to learn because you're kind of in that flow of finding information and absorbing it. But a lot of schooling isn't necessarily all that fun, and there is a necessity to learning some things, and you don't always have the curiousness for that. So I guess like one question is, the main question is how can you learn if you aren't curious, and then that kind of has some sub questions, which would be like how can you be curious about things you're not normally curious about, or oh goodness, my screen is like totally flickering right now, and it is making me nauseous. Um, yeah. So how can you learn if you aren't curious? How do you become curious? How can
Ooh.
education utilize your curiousness? Because it seems like it's very important to find a passion. Otherwise, you're just kind of going in someone else's steps, and like you're okay. Well, you're getting a job. You're getting it for money instead of getting it for yourself. How can you discover your curiosity, your passion?
Ah, that's a good question. Um, the kind of seems um similar to like how did I particularly, at least I can only talk from my
Hmm.
kind of understanding or how I came to it. It seems to be a similar question as to like how did you come to your passion or your thoughts, and um I I don't, as much as it, I don't know. There's a like I used other people to kind of reflect on like what I should be doing or whatever for a time, and obviously that's not good. But I also use some other people who have been successful and are independent, and I look at them and I'm like, wow, what are they doing that I'm missing out on? Um, so I think it, at least for in terms of like maybe not generally like, well, I guess maybe like there's an industry leader that you like or something like that maybe, and then they post funny memes, haha, like Elon Musk, and maybe you get involved into cars or whatever. But
Mhm.
I think uh like yeah, like I think just trying to engage with other people in a different way than other, or like try, I would say like trying to engage with others that maybe are kind of like independent, you think are independent minded a little
Hmm.
bit. So maybe that kind of rubs off of you a little bit. You can see like kind of where to step, and then maybe you can take your own steps from there. But that's like, that's for just like kind of finding your passion in general. For like learning something you aren't curious, I don't know. Do you have anything? Because that's a kind of a broad question.
What did you
Yeah.
like? Is there an example of a class that you were just not curious about at all, and you had to learn something for it? Did
Oh.
you actually learn something from it? Like, do you remember
Mm,
something from a class that you did not like?
Uh,
Oh,
I,
that's a good question.
ooh, that is a good question. Okay. Huh. Um, so I don't particularly like math too much, despite, me being a computer science major. Um, yeah. So I, I so
It's okay.
okay. I'm sorry, Steven. You can help me out with math. Um,
Please continue.
so okay. So math has never been, well, it has been a little bit. When I got to a little bit older, it was kind of like, this is okay. But uh, maybe, okay, here's an example. So let's say that you don't like math or whatever, but maybe you do like a field like data science, which is kind of the case for me, that has uses a lot of math. So then you're kind of like, well, I'm kind of forced to, learn it. That's one way. But then also maybe there's the approach of that, like, oh shoot, I have to learn it. And then maybe there's the other approach of like, well, it's in my field and my field's pretty cool. Maybe I'll like it, and maybe you'll go in with a positive attitude
Mm,
and come out differently for it. Um,
interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
that
You know,
that one thought I
yeah.
had.
So that's a way to discover like motivation to get into it, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I was just thinking about ways to make something you're not interested in interesting. There's a basic fundamental like contradiction when you phrase the question that way.
Hmm.
Like you're already presupposing you're not interested in it,
Yeah.
right? But oftentimes, these are things we don't know a lot about. And there's a plethora of reasons why we wouldn't that we aren't curious about it. For instance, in the case of math, I know a lot of people hate math because it's hard, and that's totally fair. It is hard, and especially if you didn't have a good teacher and you don't have a good basis in it, like it's going to be really annoying and frustrating.
Yeah.
So, like a big thing, depending on the situation, a big thing for learning something you don't like is to approach it in a way that's easy on you. Like you have to be nice to yourself. You don't want to just shove yourself into an area you hate. Go easy into it. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube and a lot of different presentations of the same material. And if you can find one you like,
and had that back in my day. Sorry.
Yeah, if only. But if you could find a presentation you enjoy, for instance, there's definitely presentations out there of math concepts for people who hate math because it's such a common issue.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely apply that to other subjects. For instance, I was just thinking of a subject I'm not particularly, dog spit, like the drool is getting to me.
Yeah, of course.
Biology.
Mm-hmm.
I am not particularly interested in biology. Like going and Googling it and going on a wiki walk on biology is not the most exciting thing in the world to me. But I do know that there's a lot of like organization that is involved with biology, right? There's kingdom, phylum, class, order, all this stuff. And I feel like if I were to get into like, why did they categorize it like this? Why do they do this? I see like a spark of interest in that. And so I guess my rambling, my point is that find something in the subject that is just a little bit interesting to you, just a little bit, and dig for that. Dig for those little nuggets of stuff you don't dislike and that aren't too hard, and go for something that's not boring to you. And then, then you can start to see why other people enjoy it, and you can start to sort of understand. Oh, okay. Biology, it's just like any other science, they've got these interesting logical things that they're using to classify things. It's like, oh, okay. It's kind of cool.
I think you touched on something earlier. Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
Just real quick. I think you touched on something earlier about it being like made easy for you. For example, my hatred of math, not hatred, I should say dislike. I don't hate it. But my dislike from it came from 8th grade when I was put into an advanced, like we were already doing good in our math class, and our teacher decided, you two, me and this girl, are going to be on your own. And she was way smarter than I am when I came to math, so we had to like prepare our own, and it was like, I don't even know what I'm doing because we're going too fast and we're planning ourselves. Like this is crazy. So I think
you were planning your own learning with math?
Yeah, we were at 8th grade, which was a nightmare. It was not very effective. So that kind of like threw me off, and I had to eventually like relearn concepts, and I was always frustrated that maybe it didn't connect as well or whatever. So yeah, that definitely I think that was something that you touched on earlier. Try and find something that you can learn kind of quickly, and if there are other people like trying to, maybe it's not making sense, kind of like supplement your own learning as you go, and maybe because that's like a huge frustration too, is like you maybe you're not understanding it, and then you just become disinterested after a while.
Right. Go at your own pace, and go into the subcategories of the subject that interest you.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sorry, Christian. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, like, this makes sense, right? If you're exploring something kind of for your own interest, right? You have that little bit of interest that you can start with, and then you can go down that track. But it's like, if you're in a program, like if you're in a class of a subject that you don't, or that you're forced to take, right? And it's going at the pace that it's going at. It's like, how are you going to be able to learn that? I'm thinking in like high school, there's a lot of required classes, and then also there's some gen ed classes in college that are required. But I feel like children definitely, they don't always have the same kind of insight into like why they're doing school as adults do.
Oh yeah.
So it's like if you're talking to a high schooler who is like, I don't like my classes, I despise this. How do you get them to be curious about something even though they've got all these deadlines and things that are like adding weight to them?
Yeah, I would definitely like to comment on that. I'd definitely like to try and give an impression of an answer, perhaps. I can speak from my experience only, of course, but it has like everything to do with mentally taking care of yourself and perspective. Like those two things, and they're totally connected. But mentally taking care of yourself in the fact that, like, yeah, when I was in high school, I don't know, if I had a subject I hated, oh my gosh, I procrastinated on it, and I'd do the minimum, and it was really frustrating and annoying, and it was just annoying all around, completely. But there was a whole system of reasons that I hated school and that it was annoying. Like, the school I was doing wasn't that difficult. And like if I had it now, if I had those assignments now, I'd probably be able to get done a lot earlier than I did then. You know? Simply because like I have this understanding now that okay, I have to do it. There's a reason for me doing it. Which is so I can have a brighter future, you know, and do what I want to do in the future. And one more thing is that like again, this is my own experience, but school for me felt like this huge wall I had to get past every day. And it didn't really feel possible because there were these things that I hated and that took a long time. And it just felt like, you know, okay, if I just throw myself at it, it's going to take hours and I'm not going to be able to do anything fun. So I might as well procrastinate because then at least I get to do something fun. It was that toxic mindset that actually got me into that situation of it taking so long and not enjoying my life to an extent. So taking care of your mind and doing what works for you, whatever type of planning works for you, your face has disappeared and it's terrifying.
What?
It's because he was clutching his fist.
Oh, my eyes closed.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but yeah.
So scary.
So angry.
Oh wow. Oh man, my diatribe is gone. What happened? The words, they spilled out of my mouth. They're on the floor.
I
was
can't pick
ranting.
up pieces either. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I guess my point is take care of your mind. Make sure to plan to do things that are fun for you, as well as planning to do school and like fully focus on your school. By the way, kids, that's the only way to get it done quickly. Devote your full attention to it. Go outside and do it, but whatever you need to do, devote your full attention to it and take breaks consistently. I saw you move.
I didn't move it. I didn't mean to move it. I was trying to do a thumbs up.
Young man. Take breaks.
Cameraman.
Try to enjoy your time.
Yes, that is important. Yes. I think procrastination is definitely an evil. It solves nothing, but man, it feels good at the time, but afterwards you're like, oh, what did I do? Yeah, I definitely agree. I've had that experience as well, and I don't know if it's like genetic at some point, because like my dad kind of struggles with it, but yeah, and maybe I don't know if it's actually that or not, but my mom doesn't really, so I don't know if I just rolled, you know, a D1 instead of a D20, but yeah.
No, you flipped a coin.
Yeah. Probability said I got tails. But yeah, and you learn those methods as you go on and stuff like that. But that is definitely an enemy of learning as well, of being dissatisfied, because it leads to that thing of like, oh, I hate this because I have so much work to do and I'm not learning anything because I'm learning it in rush. Yeah, exactly. I never get it done.
But that's in large part because of the actual
because of that. Yes.
So it's like a toxic cycle, you know?
It's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
A negative, positive feedback.
Yes, precisely. Negative sentiment, positive feedback. Okay, so it is 10:22 right now.
It is.
We don't really have a clock in here, so it's kind of hard to know what time it is.
I have one on my wrist. This magic clock that you can't see, but yeah, I don't even know when we talked though. Face.
It does look scared.
You're like, smile, oh, smile.
I think it's about time to switch to the next segment.
I think it's about time.
Yeah.
We're probably late.
I think
whatever.
Yeah, we're late by 10 minutes, maybe. This is a really good conversation. I
agree.
think it could continue forever.
I think it did for a long time.
Which is good, but yeah, I mean, it's been good.
Heck yeah.
I think
I'm glad to have this conversation. I've always loved having these conversations, so I'm
yeah,
really happy to at least have it.
some
Thank
good
you guys.
real talk.
Thank you. I'm happy to have it with you here.
Yeah, thank you. Virtually, of course.
Of
Yeah,
course. Well, we're here.
Virtually, you're right.
You can do air quotes. Oh, I guess I can kind of.
I can't. I turned off gestures because it was bothering me.
Okay.
Goodness, my screen every now and then will just like flicker.
Well, that was our first.
Are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Let us know. That was our first segment, Real Talk. We're going to shift right into our next segment, which is the Late Night Sock Talk. Tonight, we actually have a subject that a lot of other people have actually commented on, but we did want to give our own take on it. And it does have to do with what is in your garbage can at home right now, most likely. And Christian, tell me, what's in your garbage can?
Well, aside from like the normal paper and paperclip and just the trash from the food I eat every now and then, you might be surprised to find some slugs in there because actually, I took this bet. Well, I guess it was a would you rather kind of a thing a couple years ago, and the would you rather was I would just find a slug once a day in my belongings, in my things. So every day I find a slug, and sometimes they're alive, sometimes they're dead, and the dead ones go straight to the trash can, the living ones go outside. So yeah, there's buildup of slugs in my trash can.
And so a lot of people have commented on this now. Okay, so this is a very serious subject in our modern era in United States history, which is that Christian has way too many slugs in his trash can.
It's true.
And I think it has to change. Now, Republicans and Democrats have debated for a long time on this, but we wanted to add our own thoughts. So Duncan, what ethical issues are involved with Christian having this frankly absurd amount of slugs in his trash can?
Well, Steven, it's funny that you mentioned slugs because I have no experience with this. I only have cockroaches in my trash.
Really?
And it seems that they have made a colony, a world that you can transport into. One day I was stuffing down the trash and my foot just went right through the trash can, and I'm in an alternate world, and I am seen as an overlander. There's prophecies written about me, and I am this new prince that they have accepted me as. It's very strange. It's a world of cockroaches and bats and all sorts of you would think rodents. I have not met slugs, but they've just. It's fun to go there every now and then, but
you know what?
Sometimes they get annoyed with that.
I actually never tried stepping in my trash can, but I did hear like 4 other TikTok posts that went viral talking about their trash cans having an abundance of a thing in it. I think they had like poured all their pens in there, and then they jumped in and they were in a canvas. So it almost seems like trash cans could become like a new mode of transportation.
Yes. That was my deduction when I had worked for a PhD student back in Vietnam as well.
Right.
Oh, got you. Was that what your dissertation was on?
Yes, it was on this mythical world of cockroaches. We had not talked about subjects that are slugs. That was something that we were going to talk about, but then I had the cockroach thing, and that was obviously took more priority.
Right, that makes perfect sense.
Wow. Did you discover any of the scientific phenomenon behind why there's now portals in these trash cans with abundance of objects?
No, the only thing that we can find is maybe their place of origin where these trash cans are made that potentially
Oh.
have come up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a conversation with two good friends of mine, and they have mentioned that back in North Korea they had issues with like worms, potentially like making this soil that you mix into the trash can that they usually use, and
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
these particular worms make essentially wormholes. Obviously, that's what they're known for.
Oh, I
You
heard
know,
about
that's
that.
funny. We were
Yeah.
actually talking
Yeah.
about that on a previous podcast.
Oh, okay. Then
They might
maybe that's where I've
be
heard it.
developed by the same company.
Oh. That could
Yeah.
be.
So
Yeah,
okay, I see now. So they're using these worms to create interdimensional trash cans.
exactly. This is all by accident, though. It seems to
Oh,
be. Does not seem to be on
so
purpose.
they're advertising this?
They are not advertising this, but this seems to
Oh,
be by accident. That's what my research has deduced. So,
that makes sense because I was reading about some serious physical injuries that were resulting from these anomalies.
so of
For
course.
instance, for instance, there's some people who dropped, a bunch of plastic knives, like they dumped out like one of those boxes of plastic knives in the trash cans, and it's like mortally dangerous now. Like they can't enter their kitchen, or else they could possibly get like a knife thrown straight at their chest.
Oh, interesting.
Mm.
From where? The ethereal realm? That is the trash can, or
From the trash can, it appears that if the contents of the trash can are hostile or in some way parasitic, they will actually spread outside of the trash can, erupting out the top of the trash can and infest your kitchen.
interesting. So that actually kind of goes well with what we've researched as well. It seems that these trash cans are also a bit semi-sentient as well. We've had experiences with that as well. So if you constantly kick your trash can and call it bad names and stuff like that, and you go to step in your ethereal realm, um, you will be sent to a long falling ravine, and it seems to maybe never end.
Mhm.
We don't know. We sent a drone down one time, and we're still tracking it as it goes. But it's
Mhm.
been at least a year of it still falling, and it seems to not accelerate either, which is weird. It seems to fall at a constant rate. So
There's a terminal velocity.
yes, it
Mhm.
does not seem to it does not seem to go any faster or any slower. It does not seem to be getting any hotter or anything like that. Just constantly falling.
Frozen, just moving.
Sorry.
Fascinating. So it's just moving. It's
Yeah,
like
it's just,
it isn't
but
changing.
it's falling down. It's not just like falling sideways. It's just falling.
Right.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
and we've not hit the bottom just yet.
The fact that they're sentient makes a lot of sense, though, because I did have a conversation with my trash can recently, and I didn't think anything of it because that's the why isn't important, but I didn't think anything of it. But we were talking about the weather. We talked a little bit about Biden and what we thought about what he was doing in office. It was a very fascinating conversation, to be clear. But now that I think about it, it was rather strange that my trash can was talking to me because that hadn't happened before to me personally.
Yeah, that is that. As I look over my notes right here that I've written down on my hand, it does not seem that we've ever encountered talking trash cans. So I would love to have, if your trash can's willing.
Conversation?
Yes, I would love to
Oh.
bring him in for a conversation.
I would
Um,
love to have him as a guest on this podcast, actually.
Yes,
Well,
and
that's a question. How did you know that your trash cans were sentient if they couldn't talk?
that is a good question. So the only way that we know how they're sentient is one, obviously. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. So you kind of do it with like maybe like dogs or maybe like squirrels or maybe like pens sometimes, right? So you'll kind of treat them badly, maybe like or pencils. If you break them too much, they seem to get shorter and they get less effective. But for these trash cans, if you kick them, maybe put water on them, maybe light them on fire. Maybe you throw like a grenade at them. That doesn't seem to help either. They seem to, as Steven mentioned earlier, they will throw things at you that are not good. And people that have the ability, of course, you must have the ability to be able to transport in. You can't just have a Joe Schmo transport. You have to have, the birthright, as it were, of Trashcans. You must be in good standing with them, be able to. I mean, you can have bad standing, but you will be tossed into the forever falling. Yeah. So.
Yes, and you do have to be perfectly physically fit in order to survive the foray into the other realm. Of course.
This is true.
Mm.
This is
If you're
true.
not, there's a plethora of medical conditions that you'll contract. Christian, can you give us a few of those conditions that will?
Right. So some of these conditions actually don't have medical names yet. They just have the colloquial terms because people don't know how to classify them. They just know how to describe them. But one of them was their toes started turning into bubblegum, which is completely undescribable. But when you're talking about moving into another realm, it kind of makes sense that these effects would happen.
Oh yeah. But taken in context, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I mean, bubblegum feet. I think that's what the colloquial term was. Bubblegum feet. What was the other one? Like all of a sudden their fingers would turn into pencils.
Is that for those are for the trash cans that had pencils thrown in them, I believe.
Yeah, I think there was a correlation. About 95% of the correlation was between what was in the trash can and what the effect was on the person. There was like those 5% that weren't there was probably due to just some error in the consistency of what was in the trash can.
Right.
For example, I think somebody walked out of the realm with a banana eyeball but it was like their eyeball looked like an eyeball, but it was made of banana substance.
Oh, interesting.
And the pupil was the lead of a pencil. So you can see it kind of combined the things in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so maybe it's like a mixing pot,
Right, yeah. And I mean, I heard of another guy who he underwent pretzel syndrome. Which, if you don't know, I think you can guess what that is. But the funny thing was that it was only about 70% pretzels in the trash can, right? And the rest, Duncan, can you remind me what the rest of it was in the trash can? I'm forgetting the name.
Well, in our study, we did not have slugs, but we did have some cockroaches, and we did have some potato paste as well that was made.
Right. That's what it was. It was mainly pretzels and potato paste. And so what ended up happening was he not only had pretzel syndrome, but potato tongue.
That would be a problem.
That man unfortunately did not survive. God rest his soul. So this is a very serious subject, and it's very dangerous because you guys know the dangerous trends on TikTok and not Snapchat. That's not a thing. But the dangerous trends on TikTok can kill people.
I think you meant Chapsnat. I think you meant Chapsnat.
Oh, I'm dog brain. Yeah, Chapsnat. I'm sorry. So it could be very dangerous for young kids who are just saying, "Oh, the trash can trend? Heck yeah! Throw a bunch of dangerous substances into a trash can, jump into it. That sounds like a fun video, right?" If they don't know about the serious and mortal repercussions of what they're doing. So, Duncan, what do you think is the correct course of action in order to keep children from jumping into another world in their trash cans?
This is a difficult question that we have yet to come to a concise conclusion, but it seems that if you put the trash can on top of a bird bath with actual water, it will disable the trash can. You cannot no longer go in it, yes.
Why didn't I think of that?
And if you take it out from the bird bath and you place it back in your kitchen, it should stay deactivated until about it seems about 3 full lunar moons, which is a good time. So
are they sleeping in that deactivated state? Is that because they're sentient? So whoops, we. Where did the camera? Oh, I accidentally pushed the wrong button. It looks like we're gonna use these cameras. Don't double click a pin, guys. I was trying to do a gesture. So are they sleeping during these 3 lunar moon cycles?
It seems that they are not actually sleeping, but they're actually training. They're actually training for their next fight. Is what it seems like.
Oh.
Every 2 years, it seems that the trash cans go out and they fly into the sky, and they will converge into one giant trash can, which then they all pour back into that trash can, if that makes sense. And then they go into their ethereal realm where they go and fight. It seems like, and they live their lives a little bit. Yeah.
So let me see if I understand this correctly here. Just let me
Can I grab it for
get
you?
over
No, I
here.
can't.
There we go. Okay. Sorry. So you got a bunch of trash cans, right?
Yes.
From around the world. And once every 2 years, they go. And they all go shooting up into the sky and create one God can.
Yes, that
Right?
does seem to be correct. And then they will split off from this big trash can and go back into the big trash can.
So they will go back down, right?
No, not back down. They split off from it somehow, and then they go back into the trash can.
So it's like
The big
spores.
A little bit, yes.
It's like they pop off of the trash can and then...
Yes, exactly. And they go back into the trash can. They have to make the giant trash can in order to split off from the trash can and go back inside of it.
Oh, yeah, of course. And then slowly this trash can gets filled. And in fact,
with trash cans.
We haven't gotten a clear view of what goes on inside the God can, right?
No, we have not.
We do have fairly conclusive evidence that it is activated and it is an interdimensional portal. And what is actually inside is what seems to be, we've gotten blurry images from drones we've sent up there that unfortunately they were taken down by flying trash cans shortly after. But it appears that there's a whole nother world that mimics our world in a lot of ways.
Right.
But if you look closely and you enhance the images about 1,000% and increase their resolution using computer algorithms, you'll see that the people are no longer people. You turn from this into freaking trash cans.
Yes.
I don't know if you can even see that. You can. They turn into trash cans.
Yep.
So
that does seem to be consistent with our findings as well. And they do somehow go in and fight. I don't really understand it. It seems like they do love the place of Rome where the Colosseum is located for whatever reason. Maybe it's a mirror timeline of ours where they feel like they missed out on the fighting during our timeline and they go to Rome to enjoy, fighting in the Colosseum. But yeah.
Battle. That's interesting. That's fascinating because I have heard some noises from my trash can in the past that sounded like something like an audience cheering and screaming and hitting each other with large sticks, very large sticks. Sometimes pool
interesting.
Noodles. I know instinctively what noise a pool noodle makes, so I knew it was pool noodles, but that was only one time.
Okay.
So they might have been a special occasion. Maybe it was somebody's birthday party. I don't know.
They do party in there, of course, after their victories. Yeah, so that would make sense.
Of course, I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to do this podcast.
They do love to eat pool noodles. So.
Oh, do they?
In that world.
Okay. So that's fascinating because I've actually talked to somebody who was doing some research into this. He had read your stuff and he decided to look into another area of research regarding these trash cans. He had fed trash cans mass amounts of pool noodles, more so than could physically fit into the trash can, as it were.
Yes.
But it just kept going in. So clearly it had been activated by these pool noodles entering. And it acted completely unique to a normal trash can.
Interesting.
He could jump in and he wouldn't be teleported. But what would happen, he would think he'd be teleported. But everyone around him saw that he was just a limp body standing in the trash can. So what appears to have happened is that his consciousness was transferred to another plane of existence.
Interesting. I have not heard of that.
The things he described there are shocking. So, Christian, what sort of like holy realizations did he come to in the place he visited? It wasn't a normal, like, interdimensional world. Something
Right.
unique.
I think you might be amused by what he found there. In fact, he found the depiction of a dogman.
Really?
Yeah. And it was like he described it as if it didn't have physical manifestation, but it existed in his mind as he was there.
Wow.
So you couldn't run up to it and feel it or poke it, or you couldn't go and feel like you were closer to it or farther away from it. But when you were there, it's almost like the essence of it was just leaving an imprint on your brain. And that was kind of the feeling that he was getting. And I believe he wrote down all the symbols that came to mind when he had this feeling. And the symbols individually were indistinguishable, but when you organize them using like prime numbers, then it came out to the depiction of a dog. And that's how we knew that the mathematical formula of this location.
You mean a dog man or a dog?
Yes, Dogman. Sorry, the face was there, and then you could start to see the profile. And So basically, he started discovering this connection between mathematical principles and Dogman.
Yeah, and the things he found there they've actually done a lot for science in recent years. The fact that we have been able to attach the Dogman concept to mathematics itself has opened up a lot of doors. For one, it's allowed Dogman rights to become truly realized in our modern age, and I, for one, am obviously very, very appreciative of that, because what it tells us is that Dogmen are a fundamental fact of the universe itself, of reality. Since we traveled into other dimensions and seen that Dogmen are a fundamental fact of reality,
In those dimensions.
they can be sure that they are above everything else, of course.
Now, you have to be careful, because there are factions that are trying to prove otherwise.
I'm sorry, that was my own. I let a little bit of my own opinions get in there.
Well, it's okay. You're a scientist. We're all scientists here. We all have valid opinions, of course.
Right. This is true. We've all earned the piece of paper.
Yes.
Or PDFs.
Yes.
Yes.
These groups, they've affected me personally in a lot of ways. I'll be real with you guys for just a second. They took my collar.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
They took my chip. I had a chip. I'd never get lost again.
Wait a minute. You had a chip?
Yeah, I had a chip.
Did you have an owner in the previous dimension that you were in?
No, I have an owner in this dimension.
Okay. That gave you the chip, and then they took it. Okay, I got you.
Right, and they yoinked it out of me, and they said, "You're free now." And I'm thinking, what? But I don't have an owner. What? It's like I lost.
Wait, you don't have an owner, but you just said that you did.
No, I did, but they took my chip and they shipped me away. I lived in Africa for years.
Oh, did they yeet your owner across into Eurasia?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
They actually launched him on a rocket across continents away from me. And then they launched me to a completely different continent, which was this one.
Yep, Kobe's a very well known scientist, and he does yeet owners and stuff like that.
Exactly, and so I was lost for a long time because of these groups. Not knowing what my purpose was, until I realized it was to make the rest of the world aware that dog people are better, stronger, just on a higher level of existence than most physical entities.
Sure.
It's been a mission for a long time. Now, did you have something to say?
I was going to say we have to try to unpack what ramifications that fact has.
Sure.
Like, you're saying...
For one,
yeah, go ahead.
For one, before dog people didn't have any rights, but now they have more rights than humans. In fact, their rights trump everyone else's rights.
Right.
Mathematically, they trump everyone else's rights. And it's not just that they have more rights or their own rights. It's that they actually take precedence over other people's rights. Yes.
Interesting.
I feel like I'm getting some tension here, guys. Come on, communicate with me.
Well, it seems our one friend is currently vaulted his conscience into a trash can. That's why he isn't. There we go.
There we go.
He seems like he's back.
That was really dangerous. You're lucky that was empty.
Yeah, that was. I had to be careful there.
Okay, so what you say is true in this world, but it seems in the previous dimension that the Dogman was subservient to all other beings, and it seems to be somewhere between those extremes in different dimensions as well. This dimension seems to have where math in this world seems to have resulted in Dogman being so highly valued, I guess. Supreme, yes. Yes.
That's fair. Not math isn't the same in all dimensions. This is true.
No. Yeah.
Yet,
yes.
All laws and all beliefs and all emotions are based on math, as we all know.
This is true.
So therefore, we should respect the rule of math and give in to God-man's ways. Man-dog-God's ways.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay, so
now, but here's another point that has been made among the scientific community.
Oh yeah.
What dimension rules over the other dimensions? So with those rules, with those mathematical rules, which one becomes the true objective thing? And as we can say, even the closest thing we have to logic, math, seems to be different in every dimension. So it seems like it's very hard to find some sort of either average. We can come up with some sort of average, but it seems to be hard to find maybe like we can point to this exact one as being the objective dimension, the starting dimension, as it were.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now, it's not actually the dimension where Dogmen originated. I want to point that out really quick,
Okay.
But I think the trick to figuring this out is to look at the cans, to look at the trash cans, right?
Of course, that's why we study it.
Exactly. So if you look at the can, that's what we all say, of course. That's the phrase, look at the can. Go back to the can, go look at the can again, right? We tell our students all the time, you need to go look at the can.
Yes, of course. There's a big banner up on my school wall right there.
It's almost like the
It's
cans...
a rookie mistake to not study it enough.
Yes.
It's almost like the cans are starting to evolve now that we're observing these new phenomenon. Maybe the cans are superior.
This is
definitely a possibility.
Definitely be true. Because the thing is that all these cans appear to have serial numbers on them, but they aren't in our numerical system.
Right.
They have a little hashtag, little hashtag, but they're not numbers. They're strange symbols, actually very similar to the symbols that man drew the Dogman with.
Yeah.
So it's an active area of study to try and decipher these symbols and figure out which can is numero uno, so we can discover the first dimension.
Yes. And this is why we've been looking into, we're going to at least look into the next dimension of slugs that Christian has mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. It seems that there seems to be a little bit of a dimension breaker there. They seem to be able to transport between different dimensions as well without the use of a trash can. There seems to be a symbiotic relationship as well.
Well, you see
that the trash can they come from, the number of characters in the serial number is shorter. So they're lower, so they're one of the first cans to be made.
It makes sense because the slugs are actually 1.5 dimensional. So it's shorter than your your average dimension, which means, of course, the serial code is going to be shorter, and of course they're going to be able to hop between dimensions because it's not even a full dimension unit. It's a floating point number, right? So it's just like all of the stars started aligning,
So
and
excited.
yeah, I know it's exciting news to find out that slugs are 1.5 dimensional. Um, it's getting so close. We just need to cut off that half dimension, and then we'll be back to the first dimension, and we'll be able to figure out the meaning of everything.
Now the question is, I don't know if you have any experience with this, but do we know, or you, of course, because we're all scientists here, do we have an idea of how to cut a dimension in a particular way?
There are ways. One way involves immense physical strength. The other involves reading things.
Reading
Both
things.
is very difficult. Now, the immense physical strength one would require the strength of 100,000 nuclear bombs. Much more force than the sun can actually generate in a single hour. So it's a very serious undertaking in order to cut a dimension. However,
Of course.
the reading method, while equally as difficult, is more feasible for us.
Yes. Okay.
We would have to be able to read the source code of the dimension. And we can actually do this. We have been able to
this is true, yes.
To map reality's dimensions, right?
Yes.
This gives us an inkling of how to cut, because the main issue in cutting a dimension is where. It's not how to cut it. That's not particularly hard. It's where you cut it. So if you can find the perfect spot, right? Like if this is dimension 1, right? This is the length of dimension 1. Right now, the slug dimensions are 1.5, so they're out here. If you can cut it right at 1, it's simple. It's easy. You can do it with a butter knife. The problem is finding that specific spot.
I heard that you could use a butterfly to also cut dimensions as well. Yes. Yes, I've heard that.
Knives.
Yes. And I've heard that also these slugs will evolve into butterflies. So it may be possible. I've heard rumors. This is also just a rumor in the scientific community that these slugs do evolve into the butterflies and go into other dimensions to cut their dimensions to remain the superior.
You see, the only issue with that is the evolution of a slug into a butterfly takes longer than it would take to get the nuclear power of the sun. So you have to find the way to do it is you put them into dimension, I think it's like 57.5, and then that's the dimension that speeds up time. So that will speed up the evolution process. But you have to use another dimension, I think it's like 67, to actually be able to, because it speeds up time, right? But that's all time. So you need to have a portal to make sure that you can actually observe the future. So you push them in dimension 57.5, then you get dimension 67, and then you set up your two portals, and then you put them in, and then you grab them out as quickly as possible after they've evolved. And then you can butterfly farm. And I believe there's currently a monopoly on the company that figured out how to do that.
Interesting.
And they have the only portals accessible to that dimension.
And they've patented it.
Yeah.
Of course. Right. Agreed. Can't believe this. So it's actually, we're actually needing to find a different method to cut them. See, butterflies are the easiest method. And using this method, which we actually helped develop, but of course they go and patent it, and there you go. Nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
But we are actually having to use different methods in order to cut these dimensions. Now, we've found an alternate method that we are looking into, and this is new. This has not been stated anywhere before. I actually plan to announce this tonight, which is that we discovered a new dimension, right? And that's dimension 107.6. When you enter this dimension, it's stretched in a certain direction, along with its sister dimension, 107.7. So these dimensions are stretched, which means if you can manage to grab a dimension, say a slug, right? They're in dimension 1.5, and you take it to this dimension, they will be stretched out enough that it's easier to cut it at the right place.
Interesting.
right? So you have more area. You have more area for error because it's stretched out.
Right.
Hmm.
I've heard that there are problems with this solution as well because it seems like they have a fleeting life when you do this. And when obviously they turn into a butterfly, but when they have this butterfly experience, they will explode into what seems to be 100,000 nuclear bombs. The strength of that, it seems. So it's a very risky proposition. This is how we lost Dimension 69 and 420 as well. Those are also gone.
Tragic.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
God rest their souls. Yeah. So actually, this method we're talking about doesn't actually involve butterflies.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
The need for butterflies.
Okay.
But that is very true whenever you're evolving these slugs. If you guys want to do it at home and you're evolving slugs into butterflies, first of all, you could get a cease and desist letter from the company who patented it. But also, you need to be careful because you might be setting off about 1 million atomic bombs in your vicinity.
100,000.
100,000, thank you. I didn't know the specific number.
You added an extra number there.
I added a couple zeros. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dog brain. Anyway.
Superior dog brain.
Superior dog brain, you know. I don't need to remember these tiny details.
Yes, of course.
Right, they're inconsequential.
Yeah. They are. I mean, 100,000 or 1 million nuclear bombs, it doesn't matter to me, so, it's not something I tend to commit to the old noggin.
Also, we've mentioned that math is different in every dimension. We've only recorded instances in 69 and 420 dimension. That's when it happened. They seem to have the same number, the same mathematical structure. So it's possible that in our dimension, for example, it could be 1 million. So it could be 1 million, power of 1 million bombs.
Yeah, it's almost like math is relative, and you just need to know where it's bound.
Yes, that seems to be the case as well.
Yeah.
As well.
Everything in math, it's kind of fuzzy. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so
it's like a little cat.
Every dimension, the first thing we like to do is we like to bring a dimensional shaver. And they actually have electric ones now, where we have access to the new electric ones. And we shave the... excuse me, Pillow.
We shave
the fluff off of the dimension in order to see more clearly what math we're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for some dimensions, once you shave the fluff off the math, you'll see that, okay, this dimension doesn't have integrals, it has super integrals, or it doesn't have, it doesn't have...
It doesn't even have counting, you can't even count in that dimension.
Right, you can't even count in this one. But it's only revealed after you actually shave it off. Otherwise, there's always a lot of room for error with these things.
I've heard that people have also collected these shavings as well from these dimensions. Now, I don't know... yes, but I don't know exactly what you can do. I've heard that they can be eaten. That's one of the applications, but I'm not particularly familiar with. I don't know if you guys have any experience with dealing with these dimensional shavings or not.
Sure. So I have experience with eating hair.
Okay.
I have a lot of experience with eating hair.
Yes. Yes.
So when that happens, you tend to take on the attributes of the hair.
Right.
So, for instance, one time I ate horsehair, and that was a deal because I had a date that night. And it was real awkward explaining the whole situation.
Yes, of course.
But when you consume mathematical shavings, that could be dangerous because you could be flattened into one dimension, for instance.
You could.
That can be rather hazardous for your health.
Or you could ascend into the being that controls and governs all dimensions.
This is true. You could ascend above any level of mathematics we've even seen. We don't know because if you haven't studied the mathematical hair follicles, you don't know what you're getting into.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you brought up one of the fundamental laws of the universe, which is you are what you eat. And that is just important for the audience, the younger audience who hasn't learned this in school yet. You are what you eat, and it's very important, especially when it comes to mathematical shavings. Like you were talking about, there are many different side effects that could happen when consuming these shavings. But you don't have to consume the shavings. What else can you do with them?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You can you can actually knit them together into fabric, and you can build
Oh,
things out of them.
you can make
What that allows
reality, the fabric
right,
of reality.
you can weave realities together that kind of intake that mathematical structure and that set of mathematics. So if you want to create your own little pocket dimension in your room, it is
You just
you know
you just
10
knit
minutes.
a sweater of sorts.
Right, you knit a sweater, you throw it on, and you're in your own little pocket dimension, or at least you take on the attributes of being in that dimension. It comes with its own dangers, of course, but and now Duncan, I've heard you've done this before. Actually, you've kind of forayed into bringing other mathematics into our dimension. So tell me one of your. Tell us a little bit about the dangers. What's the scariest experience you've had with this?
So the scariest experience that we've had, it's actually, well, I can't really talk about the scariest experience because that's actually under it's under Chef
NDA.
Boyardee law. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
cannot explain that. Yes,
not even
Chef
that.
Boyardee's
Actually,
very
that itself
yeah,
is NDA.
yes, exactly. So I cannot disclose that, but I can disclose the second scariest thing, which is they actually become one of the slugs. Now, it's not super scary, but it is scary when you consider that a slug's purpose is to live in a trash can, which can be nice, can be not nice. Usually, it's generally not nice to live in. Um, and then they transport into butterflies, which then are harvested by the company that has the patents on the butterflies,
Right.
and then is used to shave dimensions.
Right.
And that is their life being. They do that. They don't think. They don't do anything else, but they just shave off dimensions.
Right.
And it can be very taxing, especially after one use of a butterfly, and the whole dimension could be destroyed, but the butterfly is most likely going to be destroyed in the process. And there seems to be no afterlife for the butterflies either. They just float away into what we don't know if it's a different dimension or if it's a pizza roll of some kind, but they just seem to transport away, whisked away to that place.
God
So
rest their souls.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of death in this industry.
Yeah. So, kids, don't take this lightly. Okay. Dimensional shavings
Oh,
are cool and all. Mathematical shavings, they're fun to look at. They're fun to play with a little bit. But
they are.
I would not recommend knitting them together without adult supervision at the least.
Right.
Yes. Yes. You do not want to turn into slug or whatever Chef Warity, law says. Yeah. That I
True.
cannot disclose.
That's actually more dangerous if you're going to break Chef Boyardee laws.
Of course.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't
If
even
you
think
do.
about
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way. I think we've tackled the idea of interdimensional trashcans quite well, quite fairly thoroughly. Maybe in the future we'll revisit it. Actually, I'd like to all visit another dimension sometime with you guys.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do
That would be
Maybe we
that
can
would be a good
even
time.
knit some of our own together.
Yeah. That would be fun. We are scientists. We do know what we're doing.
We do
and
know what we're doing.
we do have government funding as well, which will be good.
Well,
we do have
hold,
our PD.
government.
Yes.
Don't try this at home.
No.
No.
You need special equipment for this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well,
Yep.
gentle dog and gentle human. I was wondering, it's looking like it's a little bit late.
Yeah.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. If you wanted to wrap it up, or what?
Well, we do have one more segment. And I'd
We
hate
do.
to lose out on our last segment.
That's fair.
My favorites. Now, if it's getting a little bit late, I understand, and it's getting late for me too. But perhaps we could do a speed round. What's your word?
Okay.
We could.
Yeah. I could. I already have one planned up.
That's
I already
fantastic.
have one a world mapped out.
All right. Well, how about we go in this direction?
All right. Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Could you please tell me? I'm very, very curious myself. What's your world?
My world is pain, suffering, and Discord light theme.
Whew.
So
It's rough.
in this particular world, it's people will go to sleep during the day and wake up at night and only can work through Discord light theme. So it is quite the the heartache on not also the heart but also on the eyes. The eyes are quite hurt in this dimension or in my world. Yeah. So yeah, but that I mean that's basically it. We live by Discord light theme the entire time. We even have shakes over it. Just constantly drinking it. Yep. That's all we have. That Discord Nitro is just our food, is our drinks and stuff like that.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So is every piece of food, everything you eat, Discord Nitro and
it is Discord Nitro related. Yes.
Wow.
So we have Discord Nitro tomatoes, Discord Nitro potatoes, Discord Nitro dews, whatever you could want. Yes, of course, because you have to weave yourself. You have to be injected into Discord light theme, not physically, of course, but mentally there. And the way you do it is through Nitro. Yes.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh.
But we're getting.
If you need a portal out of that dimension sometime.
We're working on a portal. We're working on the dark theme at the moment.
Call me.
Okay. Thank you. I will get your number after this.
Very good. Very good. Need to get you a Discord dark theme donut or something.
Yeah, I could use one of those. Those have been only mentioned in lore and in legend.
They're amazing.
But we are close. So
excellent.
Yep. But that's pretty much my world, Steven. I'm curious as to yours.
My world.
Since you asked me.
I appreciate you asking. It's actually a relatively normal world, except there's a couple small differences. When you look at the sky, you'll notice something peculiar. Normally, when you look at the sky on a nice day, you see a nice, beautiful blue sky, right? And then you see some clouds. Oh, cloud here, cloud here. Not in this world. You look at the sky and you see cloud everywhere. But what you do see is cutouts in the shape of clouds that show the blue sky through them. So it's kind of an inverted sky. There's clouds everywhere except for these little pockets of pure air that don't have humidity in them that float on by. And so just occasionally, sun will shine through and it'll track across the landscape because of one of these openings in the clouds and move across the sky. On rare days, you'll get a full blue sky day, but that's not too common. It's rare to get full cloud or full sky. More full sky. Anyway, that's not the only thing. In fact, that's not the most interesting thing about this world. The most interesting thing is actually what people use on the daily. They don't use phones. They don't use smartphones. They don't like smartphones. They've been invented a long time ago. Actually, what happened was they invented brain-machine interfaces that could simulate a phone. They could just look at their hand and see a phone in existence, and they could manipulate it with their mind or with their hand. And you'd think, oh my gosh, this is a sci-fi, idyllic universe. No, because this actually led to the Singularity, where AI develops beyond our capacity to control it, and eventually the end of existence as we know it. At this point, this world is no longer running in step with time. Every single day, every person is transported back into a different day in history, and they are forced to relive a day from their past. It could be anything. It could be the worst day of their life. It could be the best day of their life. But nonetheless, they have to go through their entire life forever. They never experience something new. They never meet a new person. they relive things in their past every single time. And everyone is shared. Oh, sorry. I got excited. Everyone shares in this experience. So they're trapped in their mindless carcasses, reliving the same experiences throughout their life without being able to change what they do. It's a very sad existence, and it's all because of Elon Musk and his invention of virtual handheld phones.
Wow.
That's what happened. That's my world.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that was fun. Now, this has all been very fun, right? This has been exciting, but we haven't asked one question this podcast. Do you guys know what it is? Christian, what is your world?
Do you want to know my world?
Yes.
Because my world is actually the opposite, not of this world, but of the world outside of this. All right? The exact opposite. You hear kids talking about opposite days, right? They're like, oh my goodness, the opposite of a cat's a dog, or the opposite of ketchup is mustard, opposite of black is white. Everything is opposite, okay? The entire Earth is inverted inside out, so you live on the inside of a sphere, but it is not a sphere. It is the opposite of a sphere. It is a cube, so it's an inverted cube. All cats are dogs, all colors are swapped, all trees are inverted. Every opposite connection you could possibly make is applied to this world. And that's what makes this world truly interesting, because you can think of the universe as like a bunch of nodes and things connected together, or like it's a big state, right? So maybe you could even boil it down to a giant vector. So all you have to do is invert all of the numbers on the vector and then generate your universe, and then that's what you get. The pure opposite world.
So if you could list every single attribute of the universe as dimensions for a vector to point in,
Yes.
that is how your world is generated. It's just negative.
Yep.
Just going in the other direction.
It's negative world.
Fascinating. So, since you therefore know the opposite of everything in existence, can you tell me what the opposite of TikTok is? I really want to know what that is. I want that.
Right. So I mean, the opposite of TikTok would be KOtKIt, right?
Oh, right. That makes
And
sense.
it's not where people post videos. In fact, it's where people steal still frames that aren't actually pictures, but they are still frames.
So it's just frames of paintings that
Yeah.
don't have paintings in them.
It's not even on the phone anymore. It's the opposite of that. It's a real thing. It's just a place. It's a place you go. Actually, you don't even go there because you go to the app. So you have to walk away from this place, and that's the KOtKIt, where there are picture frames that you steal. So you have to kind of think in reverse about how you can even get to this place, because you don't go there. You come from it. You exit it.
Right. You can't enter it. Like the intention of going there and going to that place doesn't exist.
Well, it does, but it's in reverse. So if you want to leave it, then you start going there. But if you want to go there, then you start leaving it.
I see.
But if you're a being of this world, then it's just natural to you.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Their intentions are negated.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting world. Well, thank you. Now I know what the opposite of TikTok is.
There you go.
That's very helpful. Hey, we do helpful things on this podcast. My friend Duncan here is having some shrubs. There he is. Oh.
What? He's in lotus position, and then...
Oh. Hello, Duncan.
Oh, I wonder if he's stuck in a loop.
He might be. Our friend here, his consciousness might have rejected his artificial form in this universe, so we're going to have to resuscitate him in a few minutes. So we're going to have to get going.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of you for hanging out, checking out this video, hanging out, seeing our worlds, talking about Trashcans, talking about education. We appreciate you coming out. And we appreciate Duncan, too. I can't hear you on Discord right now.
I can't either.
We appreciate you very much for coming on this podcast. Actually, yeah. Thank you very much for being our first guest.
Yes.
It was an absolute pleasure. Hope to have you on again at some point. The pleasure's all his. Oh,
and the first to be in this space.
Yeah, and the first guest, and for the first time, us being in these artificial carcasses, where our consciousnesses have been dumped into.
Right.
So it's been an experience. Yeah, I think it's been a good experience.
It's been an experience, indeed.
It's been difficult, but fun. Now, given you've done most of the work, but it was fun for me.
I'm glad.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We'll get it working. We'll get it working better. We'll get the overlays going. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye. I'm gonna go into lotus position and try not to die. Whoa, or I'll just die.
They're on your right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one. Goodbye, Duncan.
Goodbye.